Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And a couple more cards for my holiday 2024 card series. Like always, at the very end of the video, in the end screen, I'll post a link to the playlist that I will continue to add to as I get more holiday cards made. The ones I made for today's video could technically be any occasion, you know, which is always nice. Just nice winter themed cards, but I'm including them in the series because why not? And I did the faux dip dye watercolor technique that I have seen Christina Werner do many times. She is like just the queen of it. She's done it so many times and in so many like color combos and different things. And I honestly am not even sure if I've ever done it before. I might have, and I've completely forgotten about it, but I did it today and I quite enjoyed it, and you don't need a whole lot of supplies. And then I just did some heat embossing with a really pretty snowflake set from Pretty Pink Posh and splatter, of course. So, as always, I will have links below the video in the description box. I will have a supply list with links to everything I used. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills and keeps the channel going. And yeah, that's it for the housekeeping. Let's get into the card making. Alrighty, so to create my backgrounds, I am just using some Canson XL watercolor paper. And if I was to redo this, I would have taped these like on completely separate boards. You'll see later on that this one I'm taping first. This is the one I'm going to work on second. Because of all the heat and the water and all the things I'm doing, it just made the second one more annoying. So I should have just done these separately. But in the end, it works. It just works. So I taped them down. You can use painter's tape. I used satin tape here from Altenew. And for my watercolors, I'm using my Gansai Tambi watercolor set. I have used these watercolors off and on in videos for eons. I forget how many years. And this set I had purchased when they finally, because, you know, they've released new colors, different things like that. I had purchased this set. I don't even remember how long ago. It's been sitting forever. I was like, I need to pull it out and use it. And then I was like, ooh, dip dye. As far as I remember, I was like, I haven't done this before. Again, I might have. I just don't remember. Anyway, I'm using, for now, just one color, just a purple. And a big wide brush. This is one of the Altenew watercolor brushes. And the thing with this is you do need to dry between the layers, because that's what's going to give you that edge, that harsh edge, as you darken it up to make it look like it's been dip dyed, aka like literally dipped into, you know, a container of darker colors, that sort of a thing. So I just continue to add color. I'm just working on my little plastic palette here. So the first one was not very much color and a whole lot of water. And then I just continue to add more color and a little bit less water to get it darker. And just working with one color here. You can definitely do multiples. And like I said in the intro, if you're not already subscribed to Christina Werner, what the heck? She's like the OG of card making tutorials and watercoloring especially. Oof, man. So good. So good. So you can do different colors, everything. I just stuck with basically one, and then I'm going to bring in some black, but I'll do that like kind of closer to the end of this panel. And this is definitely something that anyone can do, 100%, because, you know, you're just painting. Like, you're not, you know, doing any shading or, you know, like filling in an image. It's just the background. I'm messing up, that sort of thing. But even with my oopsies, in the end, it doesn't matter. And splatter always helps with everything. And yeah, I think this is a good way to kind of just experiment. You could also try this with, if you don't have watercolors, you could just use like water reactive inks, because that could work too. If you wanted to get even more finicky, I remember seeing it. I can't remember who did it, but I've seen people use like a torn edge of cardstock and just ink blending and blended layers, you know, and built it up. And then you just use the cardstock to kind of give it like a torn edge and then just kept building it up. Heck, even I wouldn't even be surprised if Christina's done it too, because she's posted a ton of videos. And like I said, you guys, my brain is mush at this point. Anyway, all it takes is a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, both of which I don't have. So if I can do it, anyone can do it. This first one was better. The second one I struggled, but again, it had more to do with the fact that like I just kind of put this tape through its paces. I really like this tape, but I've also shown in past videos like using just the regular like blue painter's tape. That works great too. But yeah, the heat tool, I was putting this through a lot. So I kept darkening my layers until I was like pretty much getting it to full strength, and then I added a bit of black. So this will get it, to my darkest layers here near the top. And went in, added a couple with this specific brand of watercolor. You can definitely tell when you've kind of reached the limit of the layers you can add. With this one, it wasn't as obvious. I could really tell with the second one I did. Because you'll just find that they're just not, it starts to get almost a bit of a glossy finish to it, and it just isn't, it's just not working quite the same. Not that honestly, again, not that it really matters, but just FYI. So this first one was done, got all the layers, love it, super fun. I managed to keep the edges really crisp, which are, for me, are completely irrelevant. The only reason I have this tape down is just to keep everything flat, because the more water you add, the cardstock wants to curl up and everything runs off the edges, that sort of a thing. So I removed it to get it out of the way, so I'm not making a big mess. And then I'm doing the second one, and kind of off camera, everything was like going just bonkers in life. It was just, I was impatient and I was frustrated. And while this background still, I think, turned out fine, I can tell a difference. And I was really frustrated, and I just made it work. But like I said, it's just take your time, try not to overthink it. But I was just having a time with this one. So it didn't turn out as nice as the first one, but it was still fun. So, meh. This one I used like a turquoise sort of a color, and I did the exact same thing, but you can see I'm like fighting with the tape. I'm fighting with the watercolor because the tape has just like given up. I had been overheated multiple times because I was just using my heat tool to, speed up. And yeah, I was just having a fun. These are the times where it's like you should just pack her up, walk away, go do something, like, come back later, go have some tea. Just go do something else. That I should follow my own advice. But this is why I always say, like, do as I say, not as I do. Because did I do any of that? No, I just powered through. And again, it's not the end of the world. It's one of those things. So I was doing the same thing by just, less water, more color, working my way up. I kind of, with this one, I was like angling the edges a bit more to make it look a little more, organic, whatever. And yeah, this one I could definitely tell as I was getting towards the top, like there's multiple layers. That's when I really started noticing that I think it's a combination of just the watercolor, and I am using like cheap watercolor paper. I've told you guys this a million times. I've been using this Canson XL stuff for a bajillion years. It's cheap. It works for the most part, but always, especially with watercolor, even something simple like this, like a background like this, the better quality the paper, the better your results. But again, do as I say, not as I do, because I don't follow my own advice. Anyway, that one was done. Still happy with it. I'm going to die cut these down, because originally these panels, because I just take my watercolor paper because it's originally like 9 by 12. So I cut it in half and I cut it in half again. So I end up with panels that are like 6 by 4.5. And that always gives me space to, tape it down, yada, yada. But I die cut these with just a basic rectangle wafer die. So they're smaller than a A2 card front. They're roughly like 3 3/4 by 5, something like that. And then they're obviously dry, but I wanted to like double check. So I poured my embossing powder over the backgrounds without, adding any anti-static powder, just to make sure that it wasn't going to stick to everything and be difficult. And it was good. So now I'm going to put these backgrounds into my MISTI. And I'm using the Pretty Pink Posh Snowflake stamp set. This was part of their holiday release, and I've had it sitting out for weeks, just waiting to use it because, one, I love snowflakes. It's like everything. I was like, do you need, snowflakes are unique. I will never pass on like Snowflake wafer dyes and Snowflake stamps. Love them. And they work for so many things. So anyway, lined up all of the individual Snowflake stamps from that set. And I left space for the sentiment. You could stamp and heat emboss the sentiment at the same time as well, but I wanted to do it separately. So I just kind of left a space for it. And then I used my anti-static powder on both these backgrounds just to make sure that things are not going to stick to anything other than the stamped images. And I even added a little bit of just tape to the back of my background just to give it a little extra stick to my grip mat. Because again, I'm working with watercolor paper. It was still a teensy bit warped from, all the heat and the watercoloring. And that just enabled me to stamp the stamps a couple of times without anything moving, where it shouldn't. And I inked up the stamps with clear embossing ink, stamped it a couple times to ensure that I got a good stamped impression, coated it all with some detail white embossing powder, and then melted with my heat tool. Super simple. You could also use metallics. I did think about it. I was like, ooh, this would look really pretty with silver embossing powder or gold. I did think about it. It would have looked great, but I just wanted to do white for these ones. If I'd had more time and could have done more backgrounds, totally would have done it, and then experimented with different finishes of embossing powders, because again, the sky's the limit. You can go so many ways, and it would be so fun to do just a whole bunch of backgrounds in different color combos and then use different embossing powders, But I stuck with the white because that's just where I was at, and did the exact same thing to the second panel. So anti-static powder, stamp the sentiments a couple times with clear, stamp the snowflakes a couple times with clear embossing ink, coated with the white embossing powder, melted with my heat tool. And then once these are all melted, let them cool off for a few seconds, and then I'm going to buff away that excess anti-static powder with my microfiber cloth. So then I've got the backgrounds just like so. And then once these are ready to go, I'm of course going to add splatter. Could still leave them like this, but you guys know I love me some splatter. So I'm going to use my permanent white gouache, put a little bit of that on my palette, and then I'm going to thin this out a bit with water. And on the more aqua color panel, this still remained pretty white. On the purple one, it did still manage, especially on the very dark layers, it did manage to absorb some of that color and turn a lighter shade of purple. I'm only mentioning that just because I know it really bothers some people sometimes when their splatter doesn't remain true to color like white, especially when it's supposed to be, snow. But it honestly sometimes just depends on what you're splattering on top of. Things like watercolors that, are obviously water reactive can be a little iffy, but it also can just depend on the actual color itself. Because like I said, the more turquoise color background, it was fine. The purple one, it did that. And I'm not surprised. Purple is one step over from red. And I've talked about red a lot. Red inks, red pigments are so fun. It just likes to make a mess, which also obviously translates to pink. Same idea. And purples will do that too. So basically just a heads up on it. But again, I was fine with it. I just thought I would mention it. So after I'd splattered, I'd set those aside to dry. And then I heat embossed the Winter Greetings sentiment from that stamp set onto a piece of black cardstock, doing the exact same thing. Anti-static powder, stamp the sentiments with clear embossing ink, heat embossed with the white embossing powder, and then I used the coordinating wafer die to die cut those sentiments. And then set all that aside, and for the insides of my cards, I'm creating top folding A2 white note cards, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm putting my card bases into my MISTI, and I'm lining up all these individual snowflake stamps again, all on the inside of the card. And these I'm going to ink up and stamp with just lighter shades of ink. So for this card, I'm using Simon's Positively Saturated Ink in Dew. And inked everything up, stamped it, wiped off the stamps, and then I'm going to stamp the second card base with Lilac Positively Saturated ink. And then once those are stamped, clean off the stamps, remove them. I'm going to stamp one of the little companion sentiments from that stamp set onto the insides of these cards with black ink. And this one just says warmest wishes. So that's what I meant with these cards can totally be like any occasion. You know, they're snowflakes. They can be for anything. So holiday, thinking of you, whatever, you know? So once the insides were stamped, I wanted to add some baker's twine to my panels because, again, it's just what I like to do. So I wrapped some baker's twine around the panel, reverse tweezers as always for the win to hold that little knot in place so I can make my little bow. Fiddle with that a bit till I get it the way I want it, pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again, fiddle, just fiddle till you get it the way you want it. And then I can trim off the tails, and then I just do the exact same thing on the second card front. And then to adhere the sentiment, I'm going to use some little thin black foam strips. These are the ones from Waffle Flower. And because I want to leave a gap right down the middle of the sentiment for the baker's twine to pass through, so I can put the little foam strips right on there. So this will pop up the sentiment, give it a little bit of dimension, but it gives that little space for the baker's twine so it doesn't create like a weird little lump. So pop that into place. Again, repeated that on the second card front. And then to adhere this to my card base, I'm going to put Simon's Big Mama foam tape on the back. This will also give a little bit of dimension without a whole lot of bulk. And again, I created a little gap there for the baker's twine. So keeps everything, not looking lumpy and weird. So remove that. Pop these onto the card bases, making sure that I paired up, the right color combo with the colors I stamped on the inside. And then dug through my stash of my multiple lifetime stash of bling and found a couple colors that worked. These are the Pretty Pink Posh. I have mint shimmer confetti and purple shimmer confetti, and sprinkled those onto both of these cards and then adhered them into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. Just picking them up with my embellishment wand. And then I just got to let the glue dry, and these cards are complete. And now that I'm thinking of it, I should probably take some of the stamps and stamp a couple of white envelopes with those inks and those snowflakes. I don't often do coordinating envelopes. I'm literally just thinking about this as I'm doing the voiceover. But I'm probably going to do that because that would look really cute. But the photos, everything else is done, so I won't have photos of it. But that's also a good thing with snowflake stamps. It's simple. So yeah, I'm going to do that. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thumbs upping and commenting helps a ton, and I very much appreciate it, and I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye! Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!